Welcome back, everyone, to the Deep Dive. So today we're going deep with the Conversion Bible.
The Conversion Bible.
Yeah, it's
Oh, great one.
it's a really cool article by Mohammed Tufekh all about making your Shopify store more successful with conversion rate optimization.
CRO.
Yeah, CRO. It was just published on March 14th, 2025.
Very recent.
Yeah, and I'm really excited to dig into it because it's got some awesome insights about how to really understand the metrics that matter and then set up the right tools to track them and then like see what other people are doing. So like real world examples.
Real world application.
Yeah. And this podcast is powered by Growth Suite. Growth Suite helps you to run smart discount campaigns on your store. Test it for free on your Shopify store. Just land on the Shopify App Store now and test it for free. Okay.
Jumping right into it.
Yeah, what really stood out to me in this article is that like it really gives you a clear path to make decisions based on data, not just like your gut feeling.
Absolutely. And it is all about data-driven decisions. I mean, we need to know what works and what doesn't, and we can't just rely on intuition. We need hard numbers.
Totally. And it's not just about getting a ton of people to your site. It's about understanding like what they're doing on your site.
Absolutely. It's about guiding them, guiding visitors towards those desired actions. And, it's also not just about like getting them to buy right away. Like we have to think about like those smaller wins.
Oh, yeah.
Like email signups.
The micro conversions.
Micro conversions, exactly.
Yeah, so like the big kahuna.
The
macro conversions,
Yes.
like actually making a purchase.
All conversions aren't like created equal.
They're not all equal. It's a journey, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you wouldn't walk into a store and immediately buy the most expensive thing, would you? You want to warm up, get to know the brand, like build some trust.
Okay, so they all sort of contribute to like the bigger picture in some way. So how do we track all of this? Like Shopify can do some of this stuff automatically right. Shopify has its built-in analytics. Think of it as your dashboard, a great place to start. It's like, okay, you can get a quick snapshot of your sales, your conversions, where your traffic's coming from. But if you really want to dive deeper, that's when you need the power of tools like Google Analytics 4, GA4.
GA4, I know that's a big one. It can be intimidating, but is it really worth connecting that to your Shopify store?
Absolutely. It's like having this treasure trove of data at your fingertips. I mean, think about being able to track custom events, like someone adding a product to a wish list or initiating a return. That's incredibly valuable because now you know what people are doing, not just that they did it. Like imagine knowing exactly where in your checkout process people are dropping off or which product pages lead to the most add to carts. That level of detail, it's gold.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So then the article talks about consistent measurement. So like using the same method every time we're tracking.
Mhm.
Why is that so important?
Well, consistency is absolutely key. Otherwise, your data is all over the place. I mean, how can you track your progress accurately if you're changing how you measure it all the time? Like let's say you're looking at your online store conversion rate, but one week you're measuring based on unique sessions. The next week you're using page views. It's not going to make any sense.
So pick a method and stick to it.
Stick to it. It's like changing the goalposts during a game. No one knows what's going on.
So what are like the really key metrics, like the things that we should all be watching super closely as like Shopify store owners?
Your online store conversion rate is obviously crucial, but don't overlook the add to cart rate.
Oh, the add to cart rate.
That's a good one because that tells you how many people are showing genuine interest. It's like they're picking up an item in a physical store, examining it like, okay.
And then there's also, the checkout completion.
Oh, checkout completion is a big one because if people are adding to the cart but then not completing checkout, something's wrong.
Right.
There's friction, and that's where you need to investigate. Maybe it's a complicated checkout process, surprise fees, lack of payment options. Figure out what's stopping people from completing that purchase.
So we got to monitor these primary metrics really closely. But the article also talks about secondary metrics like bounce rate, time on site, user flow. Why are those important too?
They give us context, like a high bounce rate could mean that your website is confusing or your content isn't engaging or maybe it's slow. They landed on your site and we're like, nope, right back to Google they go.
So it's not just about like the raw conversion numbers. It's like understanding the why behind like the behavior, right?
Absolutely. Think of it this way. You see a line of people leaving a movie theater before the movie's over. You might assume the movie's bad, right? But what if the air conditioning broke?
Okay. That makes sense. So it's about finding those hidden pain points that are affecting the entire experience. So the article dives into setting up specific tools like beyond Shopify's built-in analytics and Google Analytics. What are some of those tools that we should be using?
Okay, well, heat maps and session recordings, those can be game changers. Think of heat maps, like those offered by Hotjar or Crazy Egg. It's like X-ray vision for your website. They visually represent where users are clicking, scrolling, how they're interacting. You can actually see what's hot and what's not.
Wow, so it's like instead of just guessing about what people are doing on our site, we can actually see it.
See it exactly. And then you have session recordings where you can literally watch actual user sessions. You see their mouse movements, scrolls, clicks. I mean, this is incredible for figuring out any usability issues. You're like a fly on the wall observing them in their natural habitat.
That is wild. Okay, so we can see where they're getting stuck or confused and then use that information to make things better, right?
Right.
So the article also talks about A/B testing, which can be super powerful.
A/B testing, it's like the ultimate showdown.
Hmm.
You're testing different versions of your website elements to see which ones resonate better with your audience. Like you've got two headlines you want to test. You show headline A to half your visitors and headline B to the other half. Then you track which one performs better and boom, you've got your winner.
So we're talking about like headlines, images, call to action buttons, all that stuff.
All that good stuff. It's like running a science experiment on your website and letting the data decide.
I love it. Okay. So it seems like there's a lot of like technical stuff going on here. Do we need like a degree in data analysis to handle all of this?
No, not at all. There are plenty of user-friendly tools out there. The key is to start simple and focus on those metrics that really move the needle for your business. Don't try to boil the ocean. Pick one or two things to focus on and then start experimenting.
Oh, that's encouraging. But like before we get too excited, we need to talk about setting realistic goals. Like what are we actually aiming for here?
Right. And the article mentions that the average Shopify conversion rate is around 1.4%, but don't get hung up on that number. Conversion rates can vary drastically. It depends on your industry, your specific product, your target audience. You can't compare apples to oranges.
Right? So like benchmarking ourselves against that average might not be the best approach.
It's a starting point, but it's much more beneficial to set those incremental goals, based on where you are right now. If you're converting at 1%, aim for 1.5%. Don't try to climb Mount Everest in a day. Just focus on making steady progress over time.
Okay, I like that. Small wins add up. The article also mentioned something called segment-specific benchmarking. What's that all about?
This is where we get strategic. Segment-specific benchmarking is all about recognizing that not all customers are the same. Conversion rates can differ based on where your traffic's coming from, what device they're using, even their location. So someone who finds you through a Facebook ad might convert at a higher rate than someone who finds you through a Google search.
So instead of looking at your audience as like this big blob of people, we're breaking them down into smaller groups and looking at how they behave differently.
Exactly. It's all about understanding the nuances, the individual segments. And once you do that, you can tailor your CRO efforts for maximum impact. Like you might discover that mobile users are abandoning their carts more than desktop users. That could mean your mobile checkout experience needs work.
So it's all about understanding the different behaviors of your audience so we can target them better. Okay, so now we got to talk about testing. We touched on A/B testing, but the article also talks about multivariate testing. What's the difference between those two?
So A/B testing is like a head-to-head battle between two versions of something on your website. Multivariate testing, on the other hand, lets you test multiple elements at the same time. It's like A/B testing on steroids.
Okay, so like instead of just changing the headline, we might also tweak the image and the call to action all at the same time.
Exactly. It's super powerful, but it requires a lot more traffic to get reliable results.
Okay, that makes sense. So once we've run all our tests, then what? We need to look at the results, right?
Absolutely. But don't just focus on the numbers. Get that qualitative feedback too. User surveys, session recordings, those can tell you why people are doing what they're doing.
So the numbers tell us what's happening and the qualitative data tells us why it's happening.
Bingo. You need both sides of the story. Now, when you are analyzing those numbers, that's where things like confidence levels and conversion lift come in.
Okay, hold on. Don't get too technical on me. Can you explain that in like simple terms?
Sure. Confidence level basically tells you how confident you can be that your test results aren't just a fluke. And conversion lift tells you how much your conversion rate has improved. So if your old headline had a 1% conversion rate and the new one has 1.5%, that's a 50% lift.
Okay, I'm following you. But even if we see a connection between two things, it doesn't necessarily mean that one thing caused the other, right?
Exactly. Correlation doesn't equal causation. You got to be careful about jumping to conclusions.
Okay, so we have to be cautious. Got it. So now that we've looked at all this data, how do we put it all into action?
Well, you got to prioritize. Not all changes are created equal. Some are going to have a bigger impact than others, and some will be easier to implement than others. You got to find the low-hanging fruit.
So focus on the things that are going to give us the biggest bang for our buck.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to take it slow. Roll things out gradually. If you're making a big change, test it out on a small segment of your audience first. Dip your toes in the water before you jump in head first.
Makes sense. Okay. So once we implement the changes, can we just sit back and relax?
Oh, absolutely not. CRO is an ongoing process. You got to constantly monitor your results, make adjustments, and keep testing, testing, testing.
So it's all about that continuous improvement, right? We're definitely hearing that theme. So where do we go from here? We've talked about tools and techniques, but what about building that CRO measurement culture within our organization?
That's where the magic happens. It's about making data-driven decision-making part of your company DNA. Get everyone on board from marketing to developers, break down those silos, make sure everyone's speaking the same data language.
Okay, so it's not just about one person being the CRO guru. It's about everyone understanding the importance of using data.
It's a team sport. You need clear roles, responsibilities. Maybe you have a dedicated CRO manager, developers focusing on the tech side, designers on the user experience, everyone working together.
And communication is key.
Absolutely. You need to talk to each other, share those insights, regular meetings, data discussions, brainstorming sessions. It's all about collaboration.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So what about reporting? How do we keep track of all this data and make it actually useful?
Dashboards, my friend, dashboards. They're your secret weapon. You want to see your key metrics at a glance, like conversion rate, revenue, customer lifetime value. Easy to understand, easy to act on. It's like having a control panel for your business.
So we can quickly see where we need to focus and celebrate those wins.
Exactly. But remember, data is only useful if it's presented in a way that people can understand and use. Don't just throw numbers at people, tell a story.
Oh, I love that. So instead of saying our conversion rate went up by 5%, we could say, by making our checkout process easier, we were able to increase sales by $10,000 this month.
See? Now that's a story everyone can get behind. It's about making data come to life, making it relatable and actionable.
So we're building a data-driven culture using dashboards
Yeah.
and constantly testing and optimizing. Okay, I'm getting it, but this field is changing so fast. What are some future trends in CRO that we should be keeping an eye on?
AI, artificial intelligence, and machine learning. Those are big ones. They can automate testing, personalize the user experience, and even predict which changes are likely to improve conversions. It's like having a CRO crystal ball.
Wow, that's a lot of change.
Oh.
So we're talking about algorithms taking over, telling us what to do?
Not exactly. AI is a tool, not a replacement for human expertise. We still need to understand the data, interpret the results, and make those strategic decisions. Think of AI as your co-pilot, not your autopilot.
Okay, so we're not quite ready to hand over the reins to the robots just yet. What else is coming down the pipeline?
Privacy-first analytics. It's huge. With GDPR and CCPA and all these data privacy regulations, we need to be extra careful about how we collect and use customer data. It's not just about compliance, it's about building trust.
So it's about being transparent with our customers and showing them that we respect their privacy.
Exactly. And as technology continues to evolve, we can expect to see even more innovative approaches to CRO that prioritize both effectiveness and ethical data practices. So it's an exciting time to be in this field.
This has been an incredibly insightful deep dive into CRO, but before we wrap things up, let's hear from our sponsor.
This podcast was powered by Growth Suite. Growth Suite helps you to run smart discount campaigns on your store. Test it for free on your Shopify store. Just hop over to the Shopify App Store and give it a try.
We'll be right back to hear some real-world success stories and see how these CRO strategies are actually making a difference for Shopify businesses just like yours. Okay, so tell me about these real-world wins.
All right, well, let's talk about checkout optimization. There's this one case study about a Shopify store that was just having a really tough time with people abandoning their carts, right at the shipping details.
Oh, yeah, that's a classic. You get all the way to the checkout and then suddenly...
Cold feet.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they decided to simplify the checkout process, cut down on the number of fields people had to fill out, and they added those trust badges to give shoppers a little more confidence.
Oh, that's smart. Did it work?
It totally did. They saw a 15% drop in cart abandonment, and that translated into a big revenue boost.
So sometimes those little tweaks can make a huge difference.
Huge difference, yeah. Okay, and then there's another one about product pages. So this store, they had decent traffic, but people just weren't buying.
They were window shopping but not converting?
Yeah. Exactly. So they decided to make those product pages more enticing, more user-friendly. They added high-quality images, put in some customer reviews for that social proof, and made sure that add to cart button was super visible, like right there at the top of the page.
So they made it pretty, they added credibility, and then they made it easy to buy.
Boom, exactly. And their conversion rate jumped by 25%.
That's amazing. Okay, what's the last one?
Okay, this one's all about mobile. So this store noticed that people on their phones were bouncing way more than people on desktops.
There's a problem, like everybody's on their phone these days.
Right. So they decided to speed up their mobile site because nobody wants to wait around for a page to load. And they also simplified the navigation, made it super easy to use on a small screen, and they made that add to cart button sticky so it was always there, no matter how far down the page you scrolled.
That's brilliant. So no matter what, that buy button is right there.
Right there, tempting you. And you know what? It worked. Their mobile conversion rates went through the roof.
That's incredible. It seems like the big takeaway from all of these stories is to just make the whole shopping experience as smooth and easy as possible.
Remove the friction, yeah. The fewer obstacles between the customer and the buy button, the better. And this is where things get really interesting because the article dives into some even more advanced techniques like customer segmentation analysis. It's like taking CRO to the next level.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What's customer segmentation analysis all about?
It's about getting really strategic, really smart about how you target your audience. You're basically dividing your customer base into smaller groups based on their demographics, their purchase history, their browsing behavior, all sorts of things.
So instead of just blasting everyone with the same message,
Yeah.
you're getting super specific and personalized.
Precisely. It's all about tailoring your CRO efforts to each segment to make sure your message is resonating with the right people. Like you might offer a special discount just for first-time buyers, or you might create email campaigns that are specifically targeted to people who have bought certain products in the past.
Oh, that's so smart. So it's all about personalization.
Personalization is key. And there's this really cool technique called RFM analysis, which stands for recency, frequency, and monetary value. It's a way to segment your customers based on their buying habits.
Okay, break that down for me.
So recency is about how recently they made a purchase. Frequency tells you how often they buy from you. And monetary value is obviously how much they spend.
Oh, so we can identify those VIP customers, the ones who buy often and spend a lot, and give them the royal treatment.
You got it. Think loyalty programs, exclusive deals, maybe even some personalized gifts to show them you really appreciate their business. And then there's customer journey mapping, which is all about understanding the entire customer experience from the moment they land on your site to the moment they click purchase. It's like drawing a map of their journey.
So we can see exactly where they're getting stuck, where we're losing them in the process.
Exactly. And then we can make changes to smooth out that journey, to remove those roadblocks, to make it super easy for them to get from point A to point B.
That's so cool. It's like we're playing detective with our customer data. Okay, so what about this predictive modeling stuff? That sounds super complicated.
It might sound intimidating, but it's actually pretty cool. It's about using historical data to predict future behavior. Think of it like those streaming services that recommend movies based on what you've watched before.
So we're using data to get inside our customers' heads.
Kinda, yeah. We're analyzing past data to figure out what they're likely to do next. And there are some really sophisticated tools out there that can actually automate this process. So they can recommend website changes or even personalize the experience in real time based on what they think the customer wants.
That's wild. It's like having a crystal ball for your Shopify store. But before we get carried away with all these fancy techniques, let's talk about building that CRO measurement culture. Like, it's one thing to have the tools and the knowledge, but it's another to actually put it into practice.
You're so right. It's about making data-driven decisions a core part of your company culture. It's about getting everyone on the same page, speaking the same language, and working together to achieve those CRO goals.
So how do we actually make that happen? It sounds like a big shift.
It starts with leadership. You need someone to champion this data-driven approach to make sure it's a priority for the entire organization. And then you need to clearly define roles and responsibilities. Who's in charge of testing? Who's analyzing the data? Who's implementing the changes?
And then there's communication, right? Like we need to be talking to each other, sharing those insights.
Absolutely. Regular meetings, data discussions, brainstorming sessions. It's all about collaboration. You want everyone to feel like they're part of this CRO journey.
That makes a lot of sense. So what about reporting? How do we keep track of all this data and make it actually useful?
Dashboards, my friend. Dashboards. They're your secret weapon. You want to be able to see your key metrics at a glance. Conversion rate, revenue, customer lifetime value. Easy to understand, easy to act on. It's like having a control panel for your business.
So we can quickly see what's working and what's not, and then make those data-driven decisions.
Exactly. But remember, data is only useful if it's presented in a way that people can understand and use. Don't just throw numbers at people, tell a story.
Oh, I love that. So instead of saying our conversion rate increased by 5%, we could say, by making our checkout process easier, we were able to increase sales by $10,000 this month.
Now that's a story everyone can get behind. It's about making the data come alive, making it relatable and actionable, and that's how you build a data-driven culture, by making the data meaningful.
Okay, so we're building a data-driven culture, we're using dashboards to track our progress, and we're constantly testing and optimizing. But this field is always changing. So what are some future trends in CRO that we should be aware of?
Well, AI, artificial intelligence, and machine learning, those are going to be huge game changers. They can automate testing, personalize the user experience, and even predict which changes are likely to improve conversions. It's like having a CRO crystal ball.
Wow, that sounds like a lot of change. So are we talking about algorithms taking over, like telling us what to do?
Not exactly. AI is a tool, not a replacement for human expertise. We still need to understand the data, interpret the results, and make those strategic decisions. Think of AI as your co-pilot, not your autopilot. You're still in control.
Okay, so we're not quite ready to hand over the reins to the robots just yet. What else is coming down the pipeline?
Privacy-first analytics, that's going to be huge. With GDPR and CCPA and all these data privacy regulations, we need to be super careful about how we collect and use customer data. It's not just about compliance, it's about building trust with your customers.
So it's about being transparent and showing them that we respect their privacy.
Yeah. Exactly, and as technology continues to evolve, we can expect to see even more innovative approaches to CRO that prioritize both effectiveness and ethical data practices. So it's a really exciting time to be in this field.
This has been a fascinating look at the future of CRO. But let's bring it back to the present for a moment. I'm always a sucker for a good case study. Can you share some real-world success stories that show how these strategies are actually making a difference for Shopify businesses?
Oh, absolutely. I've got some great ones. So there's this one case study. It focuses on checkout optimization. The Shopify store, they were struggling. People were abandoning their carts like crazy, especially when it came to filling out the shipping details.
Oh, I feel that. It's like they get to that point and then suddenly they're like, wait a minute.
Exactly. Cold feet. So they decided to simplify things, cut down on the number of fields, add some trust badges to reassure people.
Well, that's smart. So did it work?
It did. They saw a 15% decrease in cart abandonment, which led to a significant boost in revenue.
Wow, so those little changes can make a big difference.
They really can, yeah. Okay, and then there's another one. This one's about product pages. This store, they had good traffic, but people just weren't buying.
So they were browsing but not converting.
Exactly. So they decided to revamp those product pages, make them more enticing, more user-friendly. They added high-quality images, put in some customer reviews for that social proof, and they made sure that Add to Cart button was super obvious, like right there above the fold.
So they made it look good, they added some credibility, and they made it easy to buy.
Exactly, those three key things. And you know what? Their conversion rate went up by 25%.
That's amazing. What about the last one?
Okay, this last one is all about mobile. This store, they were noticing that people on their phones were bouncing way more often than people on desktops.
Well, that's a huge problem, like everyone's on their phones these days.
Right, so they knew they had to do something. They sped up their mobile site because nobody wants to wait around for a page to load. They also simplified the navigation to make it easier to use on a smaller screen. And then get this. They made that Add to Cart button sticky, so it was always there, no matter how far you scroll down the page.
No, that's brilliant. So you're always just one tap away from buying.
Exactly, always tempting you. And it worked. Their mobile conversion rates shot up, like almost caught up to their desktop rates.
That is so cool. So it seems like there's a theme here. We need to make the whole shopping experience super smooth and easy.
I remove the friction, yeah. The fewer obstacles between your customer and that buy button, the better their chances of converting. And, as we wrap up this deep dive into the Conversion Bible, it's clear that CRO is a journey, not a destination. It's about constantly learning, testing, and refining your strategies to create that seamless, enjoyable shopping experience that turns those browsers into buyers.
This has been such an insightful deep dive. We've covered so much ground, from the fundamentals to advanced techniques, real-world examples, and even a glimpse into the future of CRO. But before we go, Any final words of wisdom for our listeners?
Keep testing, keep learning, and don't be afraid to experiment. CRO is all about finding what works best for your unique business and your unique audience. And remember, even small changes can make a big impact. So don't underestimate the power of optimizing those product pages, streamlining that checkout process, and personalizing the user experience.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And of course, a huge thank you to Mohammed Tufik Yapan for writing such a comprehensive and insightful article, The Conversion Bible. If you want to explore any of these topics in more detail, be sure to check out the full article online.
Absolutely. And a big thank you to Growth Suite for powering this episode.
Growth Suite helps you run smart discount campaigns on your Shopify store. You can try it for free. Just head over to the Shopify App Store and give it a spin. That's it for this episode of The Deep Dive. We hope you feel inspired and empowered to take your Shopify stores to the next level with the power of CRO. Until next time, keep those conversions rolling in.